the night was colder than usual. The streets of the small city were quiet, the kind of silence that hides 1,000 untold stories. Officer Daniel Brooks was nearing the end of his shift when the dispatch crackled through his radio, possible disturbance in the old Miller lot. Neighbor reported noises, maybe an animal. Daniel sighed, rubbing his tired eyes. The Miller lot had been abandoned for years, crumbling walls, broken glass, and graffiti-covered bricks. It was the kind of place where teenagers snuck in to scare each other, not where anything serious usually happened. Still, he turned the steering wheel and headed toward the location, the hum of the patrol car filling the silence of the night. When he arrived, the beam of his flashlight cut through the darkness, catching the shapes of rusted barrels and piles of trash. He called out, "This is the police. If anyone's here, come out now." But there was no answer. Only the sound of the wind pushing through the cracks of the old warehouse. Then he heard it, a faint whimper. It wasn't an animal. It was too soft, too human. Daniel followed the sound, stepping over debris, his flashlight trembling slightly in his hand. The beam landed on a small figure huddled in the corner, covered in a torn blanket. As he got closer, his breath caught in his throat. It was a little girl, no older than 7, her face pale and sunken, her arms wrapped tightly around her knees. Hey, sweetheart," he said softly, lowering his flashlight. "It's okay. I'm here to help you." The girl flinched, pressing herself against the wall, eyes wide with fear. She didn't speak, only stared at him, trembling violently. Daniel slowly removed his jacket and draped it over her small shoulders. "You're safe now," he whispered. "I promise." She didn't respond. But when he offered his hand, she hesitated, and then, almost painfully, placed her tiny, cold fingers in his. At that moment, Daniel felt something inside him shatter. He carried her to the car and called for medical backup. As he waited, she finally whispered a few broken words, "Please, don't take me back." "Back where, honey?" he asked gently, but she only shook her head, tears streaming down her cheeks. At the hospital, the doctors confirmed what Daniel already feared: the girl was severely malnourished. She hadn't eaten properly in days. Her body was covered in bruises, old and new. The name she finally gave was Lily. Days passed, and Daniel couldn't get her out of his mind. He visited her every evening after his shift, bringing her coloring books, snacks, and small stuffed toys. Each time, she said a little more, small fragments of a story that made his heart ache. Her mother had died years ago. Her father had fallen into addiction and often left her alone for days, sometimes locking her out. Eventually, he disappeared completely. She had been living in the abandoned lot for nearly a week before Daniel found her. One evening, as the sun set outside the hospital window, Lily looked up at him and whispered, "You came back." Daniel smiled softly. "Of course I did." She tilted her head. "Nobody ever comes back." Something about those words broke him. That night, when he returned home, he sat in his car for nearly an hour, staring at the steering wheel, trying to hold back tears. He thought of his own daughter, Emily, who had passed away 3 years earlier from a rare illness. The pain of losing her had nearly destroyed him, and now, somehow, fate had placed another lost little girl in his path. Over the next few weeks, Daniel helped the social workers find Lily a foster home. But every time he saw her smile, the kind of fragile, hesitant smile that came from someone learning to hope again, he felt a pull in his heart. One afternoon, as he was leaving the hospital after another visit, Lily ran after him, clutching the teddy bear he'd given her. "Can I come with you?" she asked softly. "I'll be good, I promise." Daniel froze. He crouched down, brushing a strand of hair from her face. "You don't have to promise anything, sweetheart," he said, his voice thick. "You already are good." That night, Daniel filled out the paperwork to become her foster parent. It took months of interviews, background checks, and counseling, but he never wavered. When the day finally came for Lily to move in with him, she ran into his arms like she'd been waiting her whole life for that moment. Life wasn't instantly perfect. There were nightmares, moments of silence, and tears that came without warning. But there were also laughter-filled breakfasts, bedtime stories, and movie nights on the couch. Slowly, the emptiness in both their hearts began to heal. Years later, when Lily stood in her high school graduation gown, Daniel couldn't hold back his tears. She was strong, bright, and full of life, a living reminder that even in the darkest places, hope can survive. When she gave her speech, she looked directly at him and said, "Someone once found me when I was lost. He didn't just save my life, he gave me a home." Daniel wept openly that day, not out of sadness, but gratitude. Because sometimes, the people we're meant to save are the ones who save us right back.